Hello and welcome to Super Science Saturdays. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Sarah Scoggin and I'm the Early Childhood Librarian at Newburgh Free Library. This is a program for ages 5 to 9, but all are welcome. So I think that science is fun, but I also like to think of the science of fun, and that's today's topic. There are two ways you can think about the science of fun. You can do something you think is fun, like flying a paper airplane, and then think, I wonder what the science behind that is. Or you can think of something in science that you learned about, like transfer of energy from one thing to another, and then you can see if you can build a game around that. Like, if I drop two balls in a stack like this. So today I'm going to take you through some activities that you can do and the science behind them. Let's start with the science of things that spin. This is a simple one, a science spinner top. So I just took a little golf pencil and I have a disc of cardboard here. This is about 10 centimeters across here, tiny bit more. And I just poked it through, but after I spun it a bunch of times, the pencil started slipping, so I actually put a little glue. So now I have my top and I can spin it on the paper. And then I get a neat little spiral on the paper that shows me the pattern of what we call angular momentum. That's the science of spinning. And you could experiment. Do the spirals look different when I spin it really fast? Or if I try to spin it a little slower? I tried this first with a big pencil to be what you might call my axis, but the big pencil was so tall and heavy that it made my top fall over and it wouldn't spin. So you could also do an experiment with trying different sizes of pencil. I wonder if it would work with a crayon. I never tried that before. Or you could try making a pencil with a bigger disc. Would that make it spin faster? Would it make it spin longer? So this is an experiment you can do that's science and art. Another thing you could do with the science of spinning is make what we call a thaumatrope. This is a toy that has been around for a very long time, back to the days of Victorian times, maybe even a little earlier, so 1900 and even before that. So you take a picture where you have part of a picture on one side and the rest of the picture on the other, and it's opposite. A really famous one was a picture of a bird cage on one side and a bird on the other, and then you spin it really fast. And because your eyes can't follow the spinning so fast, it starts to look like the image is put together. Your eye is still seeing the last image when the other image appears. So you can fool your eye, be quicker than your eye, and create an image. You could also make a thaumatrope by putting your circles with the pictures on a piece of cardboard, punching holes on either side, and putting loops of string on either side. Then you could twist up the string and pull, and it would make the disc rotate in the middle really fast, and you could make the thaumatrope that way. That's the same way that movies work. A movie is really just like a flip book, if you've seen those, where you flip through the pages and it seems like something is moving, because again, it's moving too fast. The pictures are moving by so fast, it looks like one motion. If you were to take a look at an old piece of film, you would see lots of little pictures that change only a little bit at a time. If they changed too much, then the video would look choppy and things would look like they were jumping around instead of moving smoothly. Film was usually taken at 24 frames every second. So 24 pictures, changing a little bit each time, would go by every second. Of course, you could have more pictures every second if you wanted to have a video of something maybe in slow motion, or just to make the picture really, really clear. And that's the way videos still work today, even digital videos like this, is that the images are changing so quickly. The pixels are changing. So instead of looking like a lot of still pictures, it looks like one video. So here I have a little strip of paper with a running horse, and each picture is changed just a little bit. You may have heard of stop motion animation. That's also a similar thing where you have something that's still, like maybe a doll or a piece of clay that you've made into something, and you take a picture, move it a little bit, take another picture, move it a little bit, take a picture, put it together, you get a movie. So this is a very famous movie, early movie of a horse running, and you put it in something called a zoetrope. So here, this is a cylinder that I cut out of an oatmeal container, and I cut slits all the way around it, and I put it on a little nail. You can get help from a grown-up to put a nail through the middle, and then inside I put a loop of paper. So you make your little movie, and you can download some of these offline, or you can draw your own little movie, as long as each picture only changes a little bit. And you make it into a loop so that the pictures are on the inside. Here I have one inside where there's a couple dancing. And then I have here a pencil. And I took off the eraser so there'd be a little hole there. And I put my pin in the hole. And then you spin it. And you look through the little slits and you can see a tiny movie of the actions that you drew. If you're going to make your own, try to have your movie be of something that moves quickly. The first time I ever tried to draw one of these, I wanted to make a movie of the sun rising, but instead of looking like it's rising slowly, it was so fast that it looked like the sun was just bouncing up and down. Okay, how about something that spins in a slightly different way, a boomerang. So this is a paper boomerang, and I'll put a link to the instructions of how to fold this. It's an Origami Boomerang. And they even have ninja boomerangs that have 3 little fins to them, or even 4. So you've probably heard of boomerangs or seen a boomerang, or maybe you used one, and the idea being that you throw it and it curves and it comes back, comes around in a circle. But why? Why does it come back? If I just throw this pencil, it's not going to come back. If I throw this ruler, even though it's kind of flat like a boomerang, that's not going to come back. Well, first of all, why does it fly through the air at all? Well, if you have something like a wing, something stiff and flat like this, when it's moving through the air is going over it and air is going under it. And if it's the right shape, there will be more air pressure underneath the little wing than there will be over it. So it actually pushes the air, pushes the wing up. And if it's something that, like a jet that's got an engine behind it, that's what's pushing it forward, pushing it into the air, and the air is holding the plane up. So I have my 2 little wings here of my boomerang, and if they're the right shape, it will fly. But because it's this bent shape, instead of like a plain wing with the wings coming out a lot more straight than a boomerang, as it's flying, if I start it turning, the front wing is going to be going faster than the back wing. And it's going to turn now. This is the front wing that's going faster. So if the wing in the front is always going faster, it's not going to go in a straight line, it's going to curve. And so if I throw it just right, it will curve all the way around and come back to me. But I've used this boomerang a number of times, and it's a little bit banged up. So I'm going to see if it will come back to me. Oh, it fell down underneath the table. But do give it a try. The first time I flew it, it came right back to me. Okay, but I think that's enough of things that spin. Let's move on to another kind of science. Let's talk about the science of friction. What is friction? Well, the definition of friction is a force that resists relative motion. Well, what does that mean? Well, that means when 2 things are rubbing together, if something is moving, that rubbing is going to slow that thing moving down. It's going to make it slow down and stop. Sometimes it's something rubbing against the air, but a lot of times when we're talking about friction, we're talking about between 2 things. Friction is the force that makes a wooden block stop moving if you try to slide it across the table. That doesn't really look like very much fun, but we can use friction to have some fun. Though it's a good thing we have friction, otherwise we couldn't even walk. It would be like walking on the world's slipperiest ice. Every time we tried to walk, we would just slide and we couldn't walk forward. Friction is also good in a lot of other ways. But let's use it to make a toy. So I have here a climbing toy, and I got this off a website called Growing a Forest, and their example was a climbing a robot, so I have my little robot here, but you can cut out any shape that you want. So I cut this robot out of cardboard, and on the back I have two little pieces of straw, about 2 inches long, and then I have a coin here to make it a little bit heavier. I have a quarter here, you could use a penny if you want it to be a little bit lighter. And then I put a string through the straw. So I have a loop up here and these two strings hanging down. This string is about 6 feet long. And on the end of the string, I've had these little jingle bells. You could use beads. The toy will work without these, but this is just to keep the string from slipping out of the straw so you don't have to keep putting them back through if they fall out. So the way this toy works is that you put it up on a hook, or maybe a doorknob, something pretty high up if you can, and then you pull on these strings, and as you pull one string and then the other string, and kind of holding them a bit apart like this, first you pull one string and then the other, what's happening is it's pulling through this straw. The string's pulling through at a little bit of an angle, and the friction between the straw, the bottom of the straw, and this string is enough to keep it from sliding back down. So let's see this in action. So that is our climbing robot. So you could do a little experiment of friction. You could try different kinds of string. This is another kind of string, have more friction, make it climb faster or easier. If you use like a thread, would that be not enough friction? If you made this really big, super big robot, would it be too heavy for the friction to hold it up on the string? Would it just slide down again? So you could do some experiments with friction and create your own climbing toy. What about the science of sound? What is a sound? That might seem like a strange question. What's a sound? You might say, well, it's just a noise, something you can hear. Well, to a scientist, a sound is a wavelength that moves through something. Usually it's through the air. If I'm talking, the sound of my voice is pushing the air. It's making a wave in the air, even though we can't see it. And that wave is what's going through your computer, and that sound wave is going through the air by you and into your ear, and that's how you can hear what I'm saying. So the wavelengths are different shapes. You can imagine a wave like in an ocean. They're different shapes depending on what kind of sound it is. So if something is making a really long, shallow wavelength like this, then it's a low sound. If it's a really short wave, it goes up and down, lots of really short ocean waves you can picture like this, that wave has more energy. It has a shorter wavelength. That's going to be a higher sound. So if you take some straws, I have some straws here, and they're different lengths. And I just cut the tip into a little V shape, so they're pointy. And then you can blow into these like a little kazoo. It takes a little bit of practice. It sounds like a duck. And so the longer your straw, the lower that sound is going to try. So if you start with a long straw and make the little pointy mouthpiece and you play it, you can actually play it and cut the straw with scissors as you're playing it and hear the sound get higher because your wavelength and your straw are getting shorter. Making different kinds of wavelengths is how musical instruments work too. The wavelengths might be made by a string, like on a violin. There's different sizes of strings that make the different wavelengths. Or if it's a woodwind instrument, like a clarinet, covering the different holes will make different wavelengths. Or a trumpet or a brass instrument, when you press the keys, you're making different wavelengths. So when you're pushing a key on a trumpet, say, you're really making the air go on a different path inside. There's all these twisty little tubes inside the trumpet. So if it goes on a short path, it'll be a higher note. And if it goes on a long path, it'll be a lower note. If you could untangle all of those paths inside the trumpet, a trumpet would have to be 5 feet long. That would not be a very easy instrument to play. But no matter what instrument it is, it's creating different kinds of wavelengths and different lengths of wavelengths that give us all the different sounds. And this is from a book called The Oboe Goes Boom, Boom, Boom by Colleen F. Venable. So this you can check out from the Newburgh Library if you want to learn more about how different instruments make sounds. There's another way you can have fun with sound waves, and that's to make a cup telephone. So I just have some plastic cups. Big plastic cups tend to work very well, but you could experiment with small paper cups. I'm not sure if a styrofoam cup would work. That would be an interesting experiment, but it might absorb your sound and not work as well. It's an experiment. But I use these plastic cups, and I have a string here. Of course, you could make the string longer than this, but you could start with a shorter string, and you sort of pull it until it's pretty tight. And then one person talks into the cup, and another person puts the cup to his or her ear, and see if they can hear what you're saying through the cup, not just through the air. And you can get some pretty long string. So you'd be pretty far away and saying something pretty softly, something that you probably couldn't hear what they were saying just through the air, but you can hear it through the string because the string is vibrating more easily. The wavelength goes through the string more strongly than it does through the air. You may have tried making a sound underwater, and sounds are very different underwater, and that's because the wavelength has to go through water, which is a lot tougher to go through than air. So what about the science word mass? What is mass? Mass is how much stuff there is in something, in anything. Weight is how much the planet Earth wants to pull that mass down, but mass is how much stuff there is. If the mass in something like this ruler is evenly spread out, is thin and flat, there are no bumps, it's not heavier on one side, it's all nice and spread out, then we can balance it in what we call the center of mass right in the middle. So this is a regular ruler, so it's 12 inches long, which is just over 30 centimeters. So I'm going to find 6 inches, or just past it since it's 30 centimeters and a little bit. There, so it's about 6 inches. I can balance the ruler. There's the same amount of mass on this side and that side. So everything that has mass has a center of mass, a place that it will balance. But what if I put mass unevenly, more on one side than another? So here I happen to have a mass. I have a little rock with an apple painted on it. So I'm going to put that on one side of the ruler. And now, of course, it's not going to balance right around 6 inches where the middle of this ruler is, because now there's more mass over here. So what scientists would say is we're taking the average of where all this stuff is. Some stuff over here, some more stuff on this end. So if you take the average, we call that the center of mass, that's where it will balance. So I'm going to balance it, and it's actually just about 9.5 inches underneath where my finger is. That's the average between all this ruler over here, equaling the mass of ruler and rock on this side. You have a center of mass too, because people are mostly symmetrical. It's pretty close to the center of your body. So as long as something is under your center of mass, you won't fall over it. But how can we have fun with that? How could we make a toy using the center of mass? Here we have what's called a balancing clown. So I have a little cardboard clown, and his head is actually the end of a big popsicle stick that I cut into a point. So his head is a teardrop cut out of a popsicle stick, one of those big flat ones. And you'll notice he has these two big buttons that he's holding up. So where do you think the mass is mostly in this little toy? Well, there's a lot more mass here because the buttons are a lot heavier. So because it's so far up, the big part of the mass, the center of mass is right here on the tip of his hat. So if I turn him upside down, I can balance him on a very teeny tiny point of my finger. I think I could even balance him on the tip of this pencil. So you could make your own little balancing clown. You could use coins, just something to give more weight on one side, more mass, so that the center of mass is right on his hat, and then he will balance just about anywhere. And if you poke him a bit, it swings back to balance on that center of mass. This next toy is also about where mass is, because if you have a mass, anything that's moving, it has something called momentum, which means how hard is it to stop moving. This is a wobbly roller. I'm going to roll it across the table here. It seems to be not rolling very smoothly. It's moving almost like it's alive almost. And that's because inside this little oval, it's like a little oval box I just made out of a cereal box that I cut and hot glued into this shape, is the marble. So when I start rolling it, the marble is a lot more mass, it's more energy. So as it rolls, the mass doesn't stay nicely in one place and it wobbles back and forth because the marble is moving around inside. The marble has more momentum than the light box. Finally, we have something called transfer of energy, and that's what I mentioned at the beginning. When I dropped the two bouncy balls together like a stack, one of them flew off, the top one flew off, and the other one kind of just rolled off the table. And that's because when the bouncy ball hit the table, the first one on the bottom, it started to bounce back up and it gave extra energy to the one on top. So the one on top went flying off farther than if I just bounced it by itself. So you can do a little experiment, make a little toy here to show the transfer of energy. This is something called a Newton's Cradle. And I have here just a block of styrofoam, and this is some heavy beading wire that I used to make sort of like two soccer goals. You could make it out of popsicle sticks, anything that's a frame like two giant staples, the shape. And then I used hot glue to attach marbles to string, and I've tied them all in a little line so that they're just touching each other and they hang there. So what do you think will happen if I pull back this marble and I let go? This marble has energy, it's potential energy now. I put energy from my arm into this marble to pick it up. So if I let it go, it's going to come, of course it's going to hit these, but what's going to happen to that energy? If something hits something else that's standing still, that energy can't disappear, it has to do something. Let's see. So this marble hit the next marble, and it put the energy into this marble, that put it into this marble, that put it into this marble, and it made this marble jump out the most. But this one swung back and then put the energy back this way again. And it kept going back and forth until it stops. Now this first marble didn't give all of its energy to the other marbles perfectly, because if it gave all the energy and it didn't lose any energy, this would keep going forever. But when something hits something else, some of the energy is used to make the sound that we hear. Some of the energy is used to make a teeny bit of heat. Too small to feel, but it uses a little bit of the energy, and that friction I talked about before. The marbles are rubbing against each other and they're rubbing against the air, so energy is lost a little bit until it stops moving. I tried making this model at first with wooden beads. Just put the string through the hole, and it worked a little bit, but it didn't work as well as this. And that's because different things transfer energy better than others. So if I take a big hard marble and I threw it at a big beach ball that someone was holding, a lot of the energy of that marble would go to just making the beach ball squish and bounce off. So it wouldn't make the beach ball fly away because the energy got used up squishing the beach ball. Or if I threw a big heavy marble at a glass vase, the energy is going to go and smash the vase into smithereens. And the bits would fly around instead of like here where it's giving energy to the next marble and getting most of it back again and just bouncing back and forth. So that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed the science of fun and science toys, and I hope it's inspired you to try to come up with some science toys of your own. I'll put a link in the description to a site where you can find many more different kinds of science toys to create. Or you could just play some offline Tetris. And what kind of toy is a Wimmy Diddle? Thanks so much for watching, and I hope we see you again next time.